All right, so what we're going to be talking about right now, guys, is unconventional shooting positions, all right? There's a lot of different things that we can look at. Obviously, the lower you get to the ground, the more stable the position is. But sometimes we don't have that option. You know, we may have grass in front of us or having to shoot over rock ledges. There's multiple reasons why you may be shooting in an unconventional shooting position. So what we're working with first is some regular tripod stony shooting sticks, all right? So from that, we're going to go and talk about points of contact, because all unconventional shooting positions really comes down to is points of contact, how stable you can make your reticle. But after you break the shot, you still need to be able to see your impact, all right? So first thing you look at is how stable you can actually make the reticle and how stable that platform is going to maintain itself while the shot breaks and you can follow through, all right? So grab your gun, go ahead and put it up here on this, get in a sitting position. And obviously, these sticks can adjust if we need to be in a kneeling position or whatever, but we'll start in the sitting first. All right, so there's multiple ways to use this, and we're going to kind of run through them all real fast. All right, so go ahead and mount the weapon system up, aim at the target. All right, so from here, get in a normal sitting position like you'd want to try to get in. Okay, as you can see, we have this stick already lined up to where this front bipod's going forward. So as he loads into the weapon system, if it was flipped around, it'd kind of create a fulcrum to where we'd actually roll off the top of it and he couldn't actually really load at all. All right, you can shoot that way, that's not a problem, except this is a little bit more stable. All right, as you can see, he's actually got this centered in the center of his weapon system. Under recoil, that's a fulcrum, all right? So he's not gonna be able to maintain accuracy that well. All right, so he's actually really good and stable back here. He has multiple points of contact, here and here, elbow touching here, this touching here. Somebody got a rear bag with them? All right, let me show you another way we can utilize this. If this arm was a little bit high and we didn't have the ability to push this up, and what you don't want to use is muscle, because as soon as you start using your muscle and you're pulling your leg up trying to get stable, anytime you're using muscle, you build up lactic acid, and the next thing you know, you're gonna start shaking. So you can take a rear bag and actually lift it up and put it back up under here. Now it's a little bit more stable. Wow, it's a little bit higher.
Huge difference.
Yeah, a big difference. And you can actually use multiple rear bags. But what we're gonna do now is show, this isn't a bad position, but if I was gonna be in this position here, I would move this further out. Allow the physics to stabilize that weapon system a little bit more, all right? So he can set up like this.
And I can load it easier too.
Yeah, he can load it a little easier. He can actually drop this and put it out in front. All right, you want a good wide surface. All right, now, as you can see, he's kind of floating around off his bipods here a little bit. And I'll show you in a little bit with another piece of equipment how you can actually utilize those bipods as they interlink in the actual shooting sticks to give you a little bit of camming pressure.
Well, I got moving it out like that just got rid of that fulcrum you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now the reticle right there is completely stable, and I can load it a lot easier out there.
Absolutely. All right, so now what we're going to work with next, this is one of my favorite little shooting sticks. All right, they're so lightweight, I actually lost them in my pack and couldn't find them for about 6 months. I was looking all over my truck.
Jesus, what kind of pack do you carry?
It's a small pack. These are lightweight.
It's a 2-day pack.
All right, now what I want you to do is work around a position. We have to actually stake these in the ground. We're gonna bring this up under this leg, swing your legs out. All right. Now what we're actually gonna do is actually create basically a bench rest for the weapon system. All right, this goes up under here. All right, when they dig into the ground, all right, now go ahead and set it back down. All right. Now this actually slides up and down so you can get it the height that you need it, or if you're in soft sand, you can actually dig them down and actually have these a lot higher. All right, so what he's doing right now, we're gonna try and build to where he has multiple points of contact. These little tent pole stakes, they're kind of weak, all right? So you don't want to put a lot of pressure on them. You can put some pressure to get any stability that you need, but you can't load into them real heavy. So he's got good control of the stake as his legs bend around it here.
Feel good.
Yeah,
there.
right there. Same thing, we can actually take this.
Probably put it up underneath.
Put it up under the thigh, all right? He can even roll it up and set it under there to where now he has a point that he can actually not use that, but he has another multiple point of contact.
This leg's...
All right, that leg's flopping, so go ahead and grab that ruck, pull up under your knee. All right, which he can also utilize that to keep that stake from actually trying to flip out. He can wrap it around it. All right, now that's brought that leg up. He's not using any leg muscle. He can actually lay his arm back in there on that. Now his actual forearm now is touching the tent pole stake here. So now it's another point of contact. If you can find 2 or 3, try to find 5 or 6. All right, think out of the box, use your head. Your brain is the best tool that you have. So really, it's not like, well, accept your wobble, I can make this happen. I don't believe in accepting your wobble. All right, if you have the equipment, if you have stuff that you can use, minimize that wobble as much as possible. All right, so now what he's doing, he can actually reach up here and grab his bipod with that stake, and he can actually hold those together. So under recoil, this thing isn't flying out from under him. He's controlling. He's going to push forward. You really don't want to pull back a lot. As soon as you start pulling, you're using muscle. You can lean into something all day long. You're not using any muscle. You're using bone structure.
I want to be honest here. I feel like I'm playing Twister, but it's the most comfortable Twister I've ever played, if that makes any sense.
All right. So now he's actually got in a real stable position to where he can actually minimize any movement on his crosshair. And it should be pretty stable right there. Basically, what I want to show you is actually let go of the gun. All right. Move your shoulder off. All right. Now, if we actually move this forward slightly, like this, put that up under there. All right, it'll actually set like it's on a bench right by itself. Now you can move that back to where you can load into it a little bit, but you can actually set it up like this to where it's super stable. Then you just put minimal pressure on it to where it's not moving around and break the shot. You just want something stable enough that under recoil, once he puts his shoulder behind it, that thing ain't moving around that much. It's not falling down. You can do a second shot on it, all right? Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, go ahead and try a shot. You want to move this back here?
Let's do that, yeah.
All right. Front leg sticking straight out. You don't want to load super heavy because under recoil, that leg can actually flip up and then you'll fall forward with it. So it's even better to actually hold as much of it as possible in one hand. All right, give me 2.4 mils. And give me 0.6 right. As you saw, it just rocked back a little bit, but he fell right back down on target.
Yeah, target's right there. It never came out of the reticle or out of the scope.
Excellent. As you can see, you can use different types of shooting sticks, all right, to actually make a really nice position for you to set on. All right, nothing's moving around. You just got to think out of the box. Too many people just set sticks up, mount the weapon system on it, and they're out wobbling around, and they don't think about multiple points of contact. You know, taking out that muscle, putting that rear bag up under his leg, pulling his ruck up under the side. You can even do buddy support positions. Most people think of buddy support is always with the weapon always mounted on the guy's shoulder, all right? You can actually have your buddy, if you've got a hunting buddy, and you don't have a pack, you can have him set up under here like this, get braced, and he can utilize my bone structure the same way. Now, he's not touching any part of my torso. All right, so he's not getting any effects of my breathing. I'm locked up here, I'm holding him still, and that should be real stable.
It is.
All right, go ahead. Same old. Good recoil management?
Yeah, it was almost, that was better than the first one.
All right, so there's other ways to use buddy support than just me sitting back here with the gun on his shoulder going, hey, breathe, breathe, hold, and then breaking the shot, all right? All right, let's go into a couple more.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, Chris, I'm gonna show you another way to use these little shooting sticks, all right? It's something that's real stable, so go ahead and grab your weapon, kind of point it up in the air.
You want the bipod in front of it or behind it?
No, we're actually gonna interlace them in between so we can actually kind of use it as a camming method, all right? So start out with this one on this side, all right? Now we're gonna go ahead and lift the gun up. You're gonna just wrap this up underneath here. All right, and then that one on that side. All right, so what we have now is multiple points of contact. Here and there, on this side and on this side. So now you can actually have a little bit of movement and not feel like you're just wallering all around. It's actually pulling against you. So go ahead and sit down.
How far forward do I drive it?
And not much. These are little bitty tent stakes, so you don't want to actually drive them too hard into it. All right. All right, now go ahead. You need multiple points of contact with your knees too,
Okay.
to your elbows. So go ahead and pull that leg up real high. All right, there you go. You can do it like that. Now that leg is going to get kind of shaky and weak. If you need to make the shot, at least you have a point of contact. Again, it's better if you have some kind of ruck, or you can even get in a normal shooting position in a setting, something more, you know, along the lines of this. You can grab, if you pull this way back around, you're going to find you can take this and stick it up under your leg here and actually lean on it and have just a light weight here. So you pull your legs back. This is nice, but this leg isn't getting weak because I have this up underneath me, like this. All right.
So I've got one here. I needed a little bit of a boost.
Yep, that's fine.
No height jokes.
Yep. All right, so that actually works. See how stable it is. As you can tell, feels like it's grabbing your gun right now. So it's real stable. You're not getting that washing around. All right, that's a good place for that because you actually have a point of contact where you're resting on it now. All right, you're grabbing with your left hand here. You have good point of contact with your elbow, your right elbow to your leg. All right, even your right ankle's contacting your ruck.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was trying to keep it in there.
Got everything. Anytime you can get a point of contact, it's better. All right, so that's what we're looking for, just multiple points of contact. Doesn't matter which position you're in, that's the whole focus of what we're trying to do. Multiple points of contact, multiple or as much surface area contact as we can get to Mother Earth, all right? So, all right, so now, as you flip this around, you can run it either way that you want to run it, depending on which way that you're torquing the gun. So if you shift the gun slightly this way, you feel that
pull
it's
back
yeah,
on it. I
yeah,
gotcha.
it's going to be on this side. All right, so you can wrap them up. So you can reach down and kind of wrap them up as you go to kind of get as much camming effect as possible. And still, you're warping the sticks slightly, but they're not a problem right now. You're not in danger of breaking anything. So how does that feel?
Feels pretty good.
All right, pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and this is kind of a hunting position. It's very, very quick, very hasty to get into. So you can set up very quickly, just stab your sticks in, cant your gun off angle towards the target, and then set your legs down in it like this, and then twist it into it, and then wrap your legs around it pretty fast, and you're ready to take a shot.
Okay.
All right, it's not as stable as what we did with Travis, you know, so it's not that bring your ruck up under here, set up, have your buddy, you really make it nice. You know, you can even have your buddy in a position like this, get in behind you and actually lean into you like this. You know, you can take something and lean on slightly like this to where I'm not breathing or moving. I have all my weight laying on this, and that gives you a lot of support, right?
Yeah, it does.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and try and take a shot. Same hold, 2.4, 0.6 right. As y'all saw, the line of the gun just came straight back and fell right back down on target. Really good. It's not boom and everything falling off target and he has to rebuild the position. He could actually very rapidly take a second shot right now if he needed to. But it's worth the time to spend just that little bit extra. And we're talking, you know, a couple of seconds, making sure your tent poles are staked in the ground, set them in, twist it. Now he's straight back into recoil, straight back down on target. How was that?
That was good.
All right, good deal. Let's move into another one. All right, Mike, I'm gonna show you another position using the Manfrotto tripod, all right? Now, with this, as long as you have this Picatinny rail up underneath, and you can actually do it on a side mount, all right? You can take this lever, throw it off, is a quick detach for Manfrotto, snaps into place. This is for the Picatinny rail. We're gonna turn it around to where you can actually utilize it with your left hand, all right? So go ahead and pick up your gun, get into a sitting position. All right, mount it in right here. And you're gonna have multiple points of contact again, so we'll actually fold these out slightly.
Now, Todd, would that one be pointed forward so he can load on it?
Yeah, it depends. Right now, what we're really looking for is a way to get his leg to wrap around the legs
so the
and
leg
hold.
on this particular one, it's not as important because of the stability of this one versus the other ones that we had.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah, really what
A
I'm
little bit
gonna,
different than sticks.
yeah, absolutely.
Try
So
something different with my legs here.
no, it's just one of those deals that you've got to get used to figuring out from your position, whether it's in a sitting, kneeling, whatever. So we're gonna play with it. But what I want you to do is you're gonna actually tuck this up under here, but you're gonna take this leg and either one, hook it right here, all right? This leg also needs to be wrapped around this if we can. So we're gonna actually pull it in pretty tight, all right? Now, as you can see, we're kind of high. So we're gonna drop this a little bit. This leg's gonna actually wrap around this front, all right? We don't have to do that. We can actually fold it back to you, make it go in one click. All right, now, a lot of times this is even a little bit higher. You can see this, your height is gonna be up here. So pull this leg up. All right, so go ahead and mount your gun into that right now. It's just another lever that locks it in place. And as you can see, this actually is pretty stable on its own. And it has a friction. The 322 RC2 head from Manfrotto has a friction that you can actually adjust to where it'll actually hold. So you can see now he's still fairly high, so he can scoot back. There you go. He can get into position. And really what we're looking for, you want your legs to be interlocked in between everything. So once you get everything set up, and I wouldn't actually cross my legs like that, I would actually get up on the gun to where when I'm sitting down, I've got a leg rolling through here. I might be underneath and then wrapped around this part here. Once you've done this a couple of times, it's a lot easier to get into
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
know
that's a
what
lot
you're
more
getting
stable.
into. Absolutely. So now he has multiple points of contact again. With this leg, he's mashing down on this tripod leg. Same thing with that. So he's really super stable. All right, he can really control this weapon. He's not going to shoot and it's not going to fall all over the place. With this leg, he's actually slightly pushing out to the side. All right, so he heel on the ground. All right, just like that. That's very good. Now he has another point of contact with the ground. His toes are contacting this point. All right, so now when he's in position, and you can either shoot with it like that. Usually I always just grab the grip, all right, because if I need to move, you can grip it and tilt and move. You can go uphill, downhill, whatever you need to do, all right? So obviously you can actually push these legs out, spread them out, get it lower to the ground. He's a little bit stretched right now. You can push the gun a little bit further away from you. Watch this, as we go a little bit further out, all right, he can actually extend his leg out this way. Go ahead and grab the gun. All right, so he can get to where he can push it up. He can actually take the gun and release his legs and move it out further on him or away from him. That way he still has all the points of contact that you're looking for, all right? But that's the main deal that we're after here. We want multiple points of contact with the structure that the gun is sitting on, all right? You can do this from different positions, but you know, from a sitting position, you can go all the way up to a standing position with this tripod system. All right, and it's super stable. But you like this front leg sticking out in front if possible, but it doesn't have to be perfectly in line. It may actually kick out to the left a little bit, something like this, to allow his body to get in a more relaxed position because you don't want to be kind of caught up like this. And then anytime you have pressures holding you anywhere, you want to be relaxed to make a good shot. All right, because if his body's torqued, right, as he breaks that shot, he's going to be relaxing and that sight picture is going to want to move. It's not a natural point of aim. Natural point of aim is not just in, you know, a sitting position or a kneeling position. It's also for prone, and it's also for this. You need to get set up where everything's relaxed and you're looking right at the target. And then you load the weapon as you're loading forward. Your crosshairs are moving straight towards that target. All right, if you're holding 5 mils like he's going to be, you know, holding 2.5 here in a minute on this target. If he's holding 2.5 mils, he wants to set up prior to squeezing the trigger at 2.5 mils with that 0.6 right wind call. All right, then he's going to actually load that into the target. What you don't want to do is actually set it up, get whatever your crosshair on the target, load into it, and then try and find, all right, that's 2.5, and now I've torqued my body and I keep all this tension in it. As I'm breaking the shot, I'm having to come back over. All right, so you want to get in that position, find 2.5 and 0.6 mils right, load into it right there so everything stays straight. I'm not trying to cam my body around. All right, make sense? All right, how does that feel?
Good. It's really secure. I mean, I've even got some panning and that I can do, and I feel stable that I can take a shot anywhere as much as 15, 20 degrees either side.
Yeah, and what you'll find is, as you play with this position a little bit more, you'll find that it's actually a lot easier to get into position. Well, see, now you're straightening your back. Feel that? Now that looks more comfortable. All right, the legs allow you to go, I mean, this thing will actually lay flat on the ground. That center section pulls all the way out and pulls out, flips over the side and shoves all the way back through. All right, so you can do some really neat things with it really fast, and you can get really low to the ground if you need to. All right, how's that? Is that pretty good?
Good.
All right, go ahead and load your gun up. All right, that looks good and stable. Lots of points of contact here and here. Nothing should be moving. The reticles should be super still, right? You even got another point of contact because you're using that lever right there with your forearm. So you're holding out here and you have another point of contact, so it's another cam really. Even though his elbow's floating off of his knee, that's not a problem, but even if he wanted to, he could actually bring a rear bag up and set it up here to where now he's got another point of contact. All right, go ahead and do it like you had it, where you're resting on that. All right, that should be really nice and stable.
It is.
All right, go ahead and give me 2.5. 0.5 right.
5 right.
All right, you can kind of load into it just a little bit, load into that. There you go. Creates a lot of stability.
All right.
All right, give her a whirl. All right, there was hardly any movement right there, and you fell right back down on target, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. He came up just barely off the front end. You can actually block out and load just a little bit more. He's a little bit off angle, what actually brought him up, all right? If he found himself to where he could get him a little bit more squared off position, still doing the same thing with his leg, and it just takes a little time playing with the Manfrotto tripod. But once you get into that position, really that same thing that we're doing when we're laying behind the gun, shooting in the prone, and we're square behind the gun, we want to try to incorporate that in all of our types of shooting, whether you're shooting off rocks, whether you're shooting off tripods. You know, even if you're looking around a wall or a vehicle, you don't want to be out here canted like this. I'm not saying expose your body. You know, you can still come in here like this and be square. All right, so if you're square, when you break that shot back, you're going to fall right back down. He was able to because he maintained, you know, pressure points all the way around. But in something that didn't have quite as much stability, if you took that shot from here, you're going to fall right back down to, if you're a little bit canted on the weapon system, boom, it's going to rock this way, and you're going to be hunting where your bullet hit. But that was pretty good. And as you play with it more, you can kind of get squared up on it more. All right?
The reticle dropped right back on target.
Yep, that's good. Excellent. All right,
Cool.
let's
Thank
do
you, John.
another one. You bet. Steve, what we're going to be working on is a side prone position. All right, so basically what you want to do is take your rear bag, because I don't want you to scar up my weapon. So I want you to take a rear bag and you're going to lay it down to, you don't want to lay it like this because you don't have as much surface area contact. So we're actually going to lay it down like this, and you can manipulate the bag to where you get the levelness that you want. So once you lay it down, you can kind of shuffle it in, make the beads go in the direction you want, so you get a lot of surface area. And the gun is basically super stable. You can just set it down and walk away from it. So all right, go ahead and set it up. All right, that should be pretty good. Now we may have to adjust forward or backwards depending. Here's another point of contact that we can also have. If you actually set it up to where you actually lay it up here to where this is touching. Obviously this is one of those deals, depending upon the weapon system and depending upon the mag that you're using, you want to actually test this prior to see if it's actually going to jam your system up, all right? So if you put any side pressure on it. Same as we do with forward pressure loading up on a bipod, all right, or shooting off of them. All right, what I want you to do now, we utilize this position mainly shooting under cars, all right, shooting through existing loopholes in buildings or anything. If you had a situation where you're shooting under a tree and you had crawled up and there was a dead tree and you had to get underneath it, you couldn't shoot in a normal prone, you can flip it over the side. You can shoot modified Hawkins where you actually, you know, put your hand up underneath the barrel and shoot like that. But this is a nice, comfortable way to teach side prone because we're not laying down, craning our necks, all right? So go ahead and get down in position. All right, so now from this position, take your left hand and hold your turrets, all right? You're gonna actually take the butt stock and it's gonna be pretty high up on your shoulder right here. Again, you're gonna wanna lean into this rock. You're gonna wanna be real stable with your lower body. There you go. All right, you're gonna reach up here. You're gonna manage recoil with this hand. So actually, we're gonna reach down just like that. All right, see how you surface contact with your palm to the rock?
Feels
all right,
comfortable.
yep, feels good. All right, now go ahead and load into the position and find your target. All right, so now once you found your target, you kind of shuffle the gun back and forth slightly and let that sandbag settle, all right?
So you're kind of loading the sandbag as you would a bipod.
Yeah, really just trying to get more surface area contact where the gun naturally sets on target, all right? So that should be pretty good. And one thing that this does do is it minimizes exposure, you know, so if you're out hunting or doing something downrange, there is minimal exposure. People can't see, you know, something to shoot at up here. Deer can't see somebody from up here, you know, up high shooting. All right, now the problem with this, your bullet's not gonna impact the same spot it did prior to getting this position. As the scope goes right, the bullet's gonna go, or the scope went left, the bullet's gonna go left. If scope goes right, the bullet goes right, all right? So with a carbine like this, you're probably gonna end up somewhere close, and you'd actually wanna track this at 100 meters, obviously, but you're gonna be somewhere around 1.3 left with the bullet impact and about 1.5 mils down. Now with a bolt gun, like Chris was using a little earlier, it's gonna be somewhere around 1 and 1. It'll be 1 left and 1 low when you're doing bolt up.
That's at 100 yards, right, Todd?
Yeah, that's at 100 yards. That's your new zero now. All right, so there's several things that we can do. Obviously, we can make that our new zero and just do pure holes off of that. Or you can actually take your windage turret, which is now your elevation turret. All right, so now we can bring up that 1.5. You could actually, we won't right now, but you could dial to the right, which is bringing it up because you took your reticle and you flipped it over sideways.
Right.
So this is right, which is now up. So we could actually dial that 1.5 up and get him on his crosshair. The problem with going, where else would he need to go? We're up on his crosshair, but we're not all the way to the crosshair, right?
It's got to go down to come
He'd
right.
have to come down, exactly. So what keeps us from going down? Zero stops. All right, so if he has a zero stop on that scope, he's gonna bottom out already, all right? So what you can do, you can slip your zero stop to where you're at running at 1 mil to where you could actually run up there, grab it, slip it all the way down to 1 mil.
But for this system, I mean, specifically with the H58 inside of that gun, what's the point? Just
Yeah, it's the only other problem is when you take that reticle and you've got all your Horus grid down here and you flip it out here like this, his bullet is impacting over here on the side. All right, so he's kind of holding out in space like we would a MilDOT. All right, now we can bring that bullet strike up to the crosshair here, but getting it back on this is advantageous, and actually some of my guys actually run that way. You know, they'll run with 1 mil on their gun so they can actually dump a mil right and dump all the way down to their zero stop from a 1 mil 100 meter zero. All right, that's where they'll normally hold. If they want to come up 10 mils, they just come to 11. All right, but that gives them the capability of going back down to crosshair now very quickly. But what we're going to do is we're actually just going to do it on pure holes. So his hold was going to be 2.5 mils. All right, but we're impacting another 1.5 mils low. So his hold is going to be 4 mils now. All right, so now we had a 0.6 right wind to start with already, right? But he's impacting 1.3 left. All right, so now he has to add that even more in. Obviously, it'd be better if the wind was blowing from the other direction to get us closer to our crosshair. But now he's going to be 1.9 right and holding 4 mils for the same target that y'all shot at earlier. All right, make sense? All right. Now, the reason, let's go into it real quick, the reason the bullet actually impacts low and left, what happens when you actually take your crosshair and sight it into the impact of your bullet, once you flip it over on its side, the bullet's not going to have that initial drop in the first 100 meters and curl to your right. The bullet's still going to have that drop, but it's going to go down. That's why we're going to hit low. All right, the reason it's going to hit left is once we had actually adjusted our crosshair and looked down, well, when it flips over here, you're looking across the line of path of the bullet now. The bullet's going to cut across, that's why you're hitting left, and it's still going to hit low because our windage turret, which is now our elevation turret, doesn't have the effects of gravity accounted for in it. So your bullet's going to hit low and it's going to hit left when the scope goes left. All right, let's give it a try.
So about 1.3 high,
No, you're going to be 4 mils high
4 high.
and you're going to be 1.9 right.
Okay, got it.
All right, give her a whirl. Good job. Nothing moved, did it?
No, not
That's a
at all.
super, super stable
It
position.
really is. Once you really get secured in, obviously pressing into the rock, getting a good hold on the gun as well, and all the points of contact between the body, the scope, the bag, and the magazine really makes a big difference.
Yeah, it really does. You know, if you try and do this in the prone, it really cranes your neck. A lot of times we'll throw down our storm cases and put our guns up on top of them, or Pelican cases. But after a while, it kind of starts to really crane your neck. This is a really good way to learn how to shoot side prone. And I've actually even used this in hunting situations to where I could not actually take a shot in a normal prone because of the situation. And I actually flipped the gun on its side and I missed because I didn't understand it back then. All right, so obviously, fundamentals, we don't always have them all the way. We're always on a path. Everybody's always learning, So that was a good mistake that actually gave me the opportunity to learn something from it.
And like all 4 of these positions that we just did, it's obviously that consistency and repetition and getting out there doing it over and over. So it's not something you want to try on a hunt. It's something you want to try on a
Absolutely.
range.
You want to try this kind of stuff before you actually go out and try to utilize it on a hunt. If the basics, again, the fundamentals of unconventional shooting positions is points of contact. Making your reticle as stable as possible and creating a position that allows you to make a second shot if needed. All right, good job, guys. All right, guys, what we want to demonstrate right now is a common misconception about the trajectory of a round downrange. All right, a lot of times, people think that the angle of attack of the bullet coming in is really super steep. So what we've done, we've set up a target at 853 meters. We're going to go back, we're going to shoot it, and we're going to come down and track the bullet flying through the first target into the back target behind. It's 10 feet behind. In class, then, we'll sit down and figure out what the math would be, and we're going to actually calculate it even prior to actually seeing it, and you're going to see that it's the same thing. All right, so give me a quick guess. What angle do you think the bullet's actually flying through the target at 853 meters? Steve?
Maybe 15, 20 degrees.
All right, Mike?
5 degrees. Yeah, I was thinking at least 15 to 25, somewhere in there.
No. Travis?
I'd say 10.
All right, what you're going to see at this distance, 853 meters, you're probably going to see somewhere around 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees. All right, so it's really slight, but we're actually going to sit down, plug it in, do the math on it, then we're going to go shoot it and come down here and take a look.
So it's not that indirect fire that everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, absolutely, because a lot of times what most people see in the books, the bullet's tracking up and then just falls off sharply. But it's really a lenticular curve all the way through. And really, some of the things that you're really going to benefit from this, all right, it's a basic ballistics class for one, so you have better understanding. But another thing that you really get to pick up from this for our side is spotting. All right, so when you see that bullet actually land behind the target and it's just off the right side, it's not that the bullet went over his head and landed back there. Just bring him to the left. It may have been a couple of inches higher at the target, all right, from where you actually saw it in your spotting scope. But that's what we're actually gaining out of this. It's just better understanding of everything that's going on. Y'all ready to go shoot it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, why don't you go ahead, give me 0 in first shot. Wind's kicking up a little bit.
All right, 0 wind, holding at 11. You want me to try to go for the head, right?
Yeah, headshot. Give me 1 mil right. All right, move to the target. 10 mils on target. Give me 1 mil right.
So you want me to run it down 850 now?
850, 10 mils on the board. 1 mil right.
1050 on the board.
10 mils on the board. 1 mil right. Impact. We're done. Nice shot, Travis. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to tie a 550 cord through this, through that, and back around. So we got to work it through the back one first, pull it through, tie it off, all right? I'll come step over. Grab that. We're going to keep it back. Yeah, you keep it taut. All right, now what we're going to do, we're actually going to pull this tight through the back side. Yep, there we go. Now, Chris, I need you on the back side. I want you to line up and give me a line back to that target, back up on the hill where we shot from.
right in there.
I'd say that's about good right there.
Yeah.
All right, now if you'll step over here, all right, now what you got to get is get level where the back two here are touching with your eye to where you know this is exactly level. And then from there, look across and look at the angle. You want to line up
Okay.
back here at the back, and then right here you can actually see the flight path of the bullet.
Yeah, there's a little
The
bit
angle.
of a separation. Wow.
All right, so you want to marry up the back two. Once you're married up there, you can actually see the angle of the flight path of the bullet coming into the target. All you got to do is adjust your head until the back two lines are married up at the back, and then look across now. Keep your head in the same spot and turn your head. That's the angle of the bullet flying into the target. So as you can see, it's not very steep at all. A lot of the misconceptions about bullets falling in, you know, and basically I was working with some guys and heard a guy say, yeah, but the angle of attack of the bullet flying into the target at 800 meters, it's really, really steep, that the target didn't have as much surface area to actually shoot at. I thought he was kidding until I realized he really wasn't, but it's not really his fault. A lot of the manuals that's put out, and you've seen them, they really show a real drop off, all right? So it's a real shallow lenticular curve all the way across. We're fixing to sit down and do all the math. What is max sword? How high that bullet was, you know, at its max sword above line of sight, all right? So we'll sit down and do that, and then we'll actually figure out the math of this at 10 feet, and you can actually see the angle, all right? Hey guys, this is something really nice to notice. With this line being level, you can actually see that actual impact of the bullet is only 1.5 inches up above.
Over that line.
Over your line of sight.
So that's the actual degree separation there. is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
we'll actually do the math and figure out the actual degree of separation, all right? And we'll sit down and draw it off, and you can actually see over a certain amount of distance what that would actually equate to for degrees,
Okay.
all right? All right, grab your PDAs, let's sit down. All right, guys, we just got through drawing off different degrees, all right? This is 5 degrees from level, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and 30 degrees. After we did our measurements, the actual bullet impact from actual line of sight all the way to the target was 2 inches off, all right? Or 2 inches above the actual line of sight going in through the target. All right, so what we're gonna do now is actually plug in 853, what this target is on the weapon system that we shot it on. All right, and we're gonna get a meal hold, and then we're gonna actually plug in the 3 meter difference, all right? So for the 10 foot back that we were. So I need a meal hold for 853,
10 mils, which is what
all
I
right,
held.
10 mils, exactly. I mean, this is
9.98.
9.98, all right? And then give me a hold for 855, or actually 856, where the bullet actually went through the second target.
10.04.
A difference of what? 0.06. All right?
0.06.
All right, so to do the math, we do 0.06 times 3.93. And the reason we use 3.93 is we're working in meters. That's how many inches is in a mil at 100 meters, all right? So 0.06 times 3.93 times 8.53, all right? Because we're working off the hundreds of yards, or hundreds of meters. How many inches is that?
2.011374.
All right. So the PDA actually gave us the exact math that we're actually seeing on this, all right? So since this is actually only 4 foot, all right, we're actually gonna work at drawing off the diagram of the degrees that we're actually working with. So from this point out in space, out there at 10 foot, it would be 2 inches high. All right, so at 5 foot, it would be 1 inch, right? So at 4 foot, it would be what? Anyway,
So we're going back. We're going backwards now.
all right, so what I want you to do, I want you to take this, and we're gonna mark 0.8 inches up from this line. All right, take this, line it up on that. All right, so that's the actual angle that the bullet was actually flying into the target, was this one. Wow. All right, so you can actually see, you could take, and we'll see what kind of degree change that is.
And you definitely would think that, you know, somewhere between 10 to 15 is what it would be coming in at.
Well, when you see those little drawings and all the pubs and manuals out there, what does it do? It goes like this, down into the target.
All right, so what we're seeing is about 2.2 degrees is all that it's actually flying in at, as close as we can tell with what we're using with a little handy-dandy iTouch.
Well, I mean, all we're getting here is, I mean, if somebody's got a ruler out on their TV right now, that's not what we're trying to achieve. I mean, what we're trying to achieve is that drastic reality, which is
Absolutely.
we all think it comes in at a much steeper angle. Bottom line, whether it's 2 degrees or 2.15, it's a lot more minimal than what you would expect.
Absolutely.
Definitely, even for 800 yards.
And you can't argue with the math. The math is the math. So, what we're trying to do is get rid of the myths, that are out there and just bring the common sense back into it. If you have any questions, go out and test it. That's the main thing that we teach.
Does that actually, Todd, can actually that arc change, that path change by the caliber? Say, obviously we're running that with 7.62 by 51 or 308 versus 300 Win Mag 338.
Absolutely. And, when we're shooting at a mile with a 338, all right, we do this exact same thing. And you're going to see about 2.5 degrees at a mile.
Wow.
With 338. All right. So, again, we're doing this, not real scientific, all right, obviously. But it's close enough that you can actually, get pretty close to it. So, and that's what we've done back in the past doing Hasty in classroom, when I've got guys here training. So, but yeah, different calibers. The max ord of the bullet, is going to be more shallow on bullets running faster with higher BCs, that kind of deal. So, brings up a good point, though. What do you think the max ord of the bullet was above the line of sight with a 308? All right, so if you take, all right, this was 853 meters. What is half 853?
420.
Yeah, 422.
2, 3.
About 427.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
The first time.
So, take 10% of 427, so take 43, add 43 to it, 470. All right, plug in 470 into your PDA. Now we know he was holding 10 mils for this shot, all right? So we're gonna subtract whatever he tells us his hold is, all right, for 470 meters, because about halfway, again, this is rough, but we can actually show you and map it out with the PDA just like we did this, exactly where max ord was.
3.52.
3.5. All right, so you take 3.5 from 10 mils, and what do you get? 6.5? All right, now,
Yeah, 6.5.
pull out your PDA again with the calculator. 6.5 times 3.93 times 4.7. How many inches are in a mil? There's 3.438 minutes of angle in a mil, all right, which equates to 3.438 times 1.047, a TMOH, a minute of angle. All right, when you multiply both of them, you're going to end up with nearly 3.6 inches. All right, 3.968, whatever. All right, so but what you're going to find out that, right now we're working in meters. All right, so it's 3.93 inches in 100, or in a mil at 100 meters. There's 3.6 inches in a mil at 100 yards.
120.0615.
120 inches above line of sight. That was just the max ord. So we're talking 10 foot. But really, the thing to think about there is when your bullet is shooting across the ground, there are different wind speeds, as you get higher up. When I was a pilot and I was flying, you get a certain height up above the ground, you feel the airplane start to can a little bit into the wind, because ground surface, just like you, ground surface gets a little drag, all right, on the wind direction will change slightly. All right, so that's something a lot of people take into account. A lot of times you don't have to, because our bullet's not that high above the ground, all right? Obviously, we're shooting above a canyon right now. So we know that above our line of sight, our bullet's max ord was only 10 foot. All right, so it's something to, for one, it kind of tells you what your bullet's flying through. All right, but our purpose of doing this is actually, it's really a spotting class. All right, and whether you're looking for trace or you're spotting and you actually see impact, even if the bullet hits behind the target and it's off the left side, when that bullet actually hit, I saw the bullet hit probably 12 meters behind the target back there. All right, so since we're on pretty flat ground, it's just on a slight, gradual incline going up, you would assume the bullet was actually flying over the target and landing into the dirt behind the target, and it actually flew over the top of its head, when in reality, it was a perfect shot, went right through.
So for spotters, that's great, because where that impact you see is probably where that bullet's going.
Yeah, and if you think about it right there, it shows from here to back there, it's only a couple of inches. All right, so if I saw it hit even with the center of his head, further back, maybe 12 meters, really the bullet was probably 2 inches higher than that. All right, but it's not that much. I mean, because when you look at it, 0.3 mils is a minute of angle, really close. So when you look at this, you're looking at 2 inches at 853 meters. All right, so a minute of angle at 853 meters, you take 853 times 1.145, and that's going to tell you how many inches a minute of angle would be. Obviously, roughly, we always say, hey, minute of angle on the target, 853, 8.5 inches. It's going to be slightly more than that. It's going to be somewhere closer around 9 inches. But we're talking about a quarter of a minute of angle. Now, how many guys could actually hold a quarter minute? All right, how many guns do we have that can hold a quarter minute? At 100, yes, it's not that hard sometimes to hold a quarter minute, half minute, but when you're talking 853 meters out, it's substantial, you know, so it makes a big difference.
Big benefit of understanding this concept, though, could really with that spotter dialogue back and forth with the shooter, and maybe that shooter's running a different system, a different optic with maybe quarter-minute turrets versus horse vision reticle or MILRAD turrets, so that you can communicate better to get that good second shot correction.
All right, any more questions on this?
No, good stuff, man.
All
Thanks,
right,
Todd.
So now what we're going to look at is the next generation. All right, so I ended up making another reticle, basically subtended 0.2, 0.5, 0.8, 1 mil. Then again, it's 0.2, 0.5, 0.8, 2 mils. And this just continues out, same thing. Now, if you'll notice on this reticle, each of these lines is getting progressively bigger. This is 0.5, this is 0.6, this is 0.7, this is 0.8, and it goes 0.9, then it goes down to 0.5 again. So the next one's bigger here, and then the next one starts out small again. All right, so very quickly you can see exactly what 6 mils is. You don't get lost in your scope. You don't need all the numbers in there. All right, so once we actually set this up, all right, the reason it's called the trimmer reticle is it means the refined mil reticle. So when I went out to 0.5 here, I started doing a stagger, all right, kind of like a chevron. I went 0.5, and then I went 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then 1 mil. All right, what this allowed us to do, if you can mill within 1/10 of mil actually, because if you look at it and you go, okay, hey guys, that's 0.8 mils, because you can actually see it where that line actually ends up on. Or if it's halfway between the 0.8 and 0.9, now we can mill to within an actual 1/2 of a tenth. So we get really good at milling that way. And of course, this is left, right, and top. But on bottom, we actually went ahead and did the same 0.5, 0.8, 1 mil, did the same thing as far as the width of the lines as we started going down. So this was 6, this was 7, this is 8, this is 9, and then we started back here again. All right, again, this is kind of a quick little drawing of it. But what we did to make this reticle really different, we actually set in here and did ballistic winds. Now, we talked about ballistic reticles earlier and why they're wrong, but because they're based on a ballistic elevation scale, all right, they're messed up as far as our holes. But what happens now, if you put wind dots out here, what this actually allows us to do, you can actually take and refine and know, like we was talking about on 308, these equal 4 mile an hour, each dot. So now all the wind formulas, whether you're doing the standard military formula or my high wind formula or my quick wind formula, we don't have to do formulas anymore. When I say, hey guys, I think it's 10 miles an hour, boom, you go 4, 8, 10, you hold the target right there. It's very quick. There is no math involved anymore. Now, what you're going to look at it and you're going to say, well, all right, but remember a while ago you said when we went up to 8,000 foot, everything changed. Well, it does. At 8,000 foot, once you get to 8,000 foot, instead of 4 miles an hour, each one of these dots equal 5 miles an hour. All right, so we actually change the value of the dots as you go up in elevation. So the reticle works fine up to about 8,000, then we just switch the dot over to 5 miles an hour, and again, it stays on track. Now, what you can do with it, you can actually take, let's say this dot down here at 5 mils, this dot equals 3 mils, last dot out. And let's just say that last dot, it's really not 5 dots, we actually go out to 7 dots. But let's say the 5th dot is actually 3 mils, but I want to put it on 338 with a 0.81 BC. All right, so what I do is I actually go into my PDA and figure out what wind would equate to a 5 mil hold at 3 mils left or right. All right, once I find that wind speed that gives me a 3 mil hold, then I just divide it by 5 and it tells me what the value of all the dots are in my reticle right now. So it's actually very accurate. And you say, well, it doesn't work for all weapon systems. If you use your head and use a good ballistic solver, it's going to be exactly right. It won't be off. Now, here's the coolest deal. All right?
I'm just wondering if he's ever worked on nukes or something else, because this is ridiculous.
That was my checklist.
I can't do that. I don't know how.
I know.
The space shuttle needs an upgrade, I think.
I know.
All right, so
5.3 mils.
all right, so when you look at this, now this is the neatest thing about it. 308s, you's working on 4 mile an hour winds today, all right? Now, Steve had his 300. He's working at 5 mile an hour winds. So whatever the range of the target was that in 10th mils, and then how many 5 mile an hour you can get into 15 mile an hour wind, which would be times 3, that was your wind call. If you're shooting at 500 today, you would have actually held 1.5. All right, where if we're shooting in a 14 mile an hour wind with Chris today, 15 mile an hour wind at 500 would have started out at 0.5 times 4 to get us our next multiple of 4 would be 16. All right, so that'd be 2, and then we subtract 1, all right, to get it back down to the actual 15 mile an hour instead of 16. All right, so that would actually give us a 1.9 wind call. So they're different. But what you're going to find is, because we base this not off of a ballistic elevation scale, but off of a mil scale, once you get down here and look over and figure out, all right, here's all my wind speeds. At 5 mils down, when you look at a 300 Win Mag, you're somewhere around 750 meters out, depending on BCs and muzzle velocities. And with the 308 at 5 mils down, you're only 590 meters or 600 meters, somewhere right around there. What's neat is, because it's different in space as it goes out, the same wind call actually works for a 300 Win Mag 5 mils down as a 308 5 mils down. All right, so it was actually something that just popped up when I was doing the math that I wasn't expecting. All right,
Sorry, it just popped up. Just came up with this great formula that just changed everything in the shooting community.
But, all right, so when we actually looked at it a little bit deeper, what we noticed was the actual BCs in our quick wind formulas. Remember, you're working off 4 miles an hour, you're working off 5. 5.56, when we were playing with it, we was working off 3 miles an hour. Well, something that we noticed that was kind of unusual, or at least unusual to us, we started looking at the BCs. The BCs for 5.56 rounds is somewhere around 0.3s, all right? In the 308 calibers, we're looking in the 0.4s, all right? When you get up to 6.5 calibers, you're in the 0.6s. All right, and then you can even find some calibers. We had one that was a Hornady 225 grain bullet with a 0.71 BC. So it has a 0.7, 338 run 0.8 in the 300 grain bullets. What we noticed was that actually equated back to the mile an hour. So a 5.56 at 0.3 BC every 3 miles an hour equaled the range of the target. With a 308, 0.4 BCs from a 0.41 on link to a 0.47 on 175 grain. All right, even the 0.496 it's stated in the manual. Still, we're dealing with 0.4s. They equal 4 miles an hour. Same thing with the 300 Win Mag, 0.533s, 0.51s, that kind of stuff. It's 5 mile an hour winds is what it equates to. So if you're wondering, a good place to start out, plug in, run in your computer, all right, all your data off your gun, go to your range card, scroll down and actually find like 500 meters and start playing with the wind until 500 meters equals 1 mil. All right, with 308, it's going to be around 8 miles an hour. So at 8 miles an hour with a 308, at 500 meters, you're looking at a 1 mil wind call. But for Steve, all right, when he's running his 300 Win Mag, he's going to set up the same thing, but it's not going to be 8 miles an hour. It's going to be 10 miles an hour. So you can actually find that value. But a good rough way to actually figure out where to start is look at your BC and go ahead and plug in that for your start wind and then double it for the second wind. So you'd be 4 and 8 on a 308 and go down to 500 meters and see if it equates to double the wind, which would be 8 miles an hour to a 1 mil hold. Make sense?
Hey Todd, I know we're about to clean weapons here. Can you run through that process? I know we talked a little bit about it in the class, but there's so many different schools of thought out there. I want to make sure people understand what's the right way to clean a gun.
Real quick, a lot of times I just go ahead and take my scope off and remove it so I don't get solids on the glass. Try and take better care of it.
So when I'm shooting my rifles and I'm cleaning them, probably daily like you would suggest. What point do you normally see? Is there a range of like when that copper's building up and your bearing surface is starting to? I guess that's where I'm kind of confused, and I think a lot of other people would be confused with it. Well, it's like, we are going against everything that we've been told. Hey, you got to put that copper out every time you shoot, and you're saying 180 degrees opposite. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, from what I found, and my deal was I wanted to test everything. I didn't want to take just what was being taught old school for the past 50 years. And I thought, when I teach a class, guys are going to ask me, well, what do we have to take the copper out? So I started testing it, and I was like, all right, hey, this is all I'm going to try for the next 8,000 rounds this year. That's all I'm going to do is just take the carbon out. And what we actually saw was we didn't have any problems with accuracy. The gun has 13,500 rounds on it now, and it's still sub half-minute gun. So, and all we've done is just remove the carbon every time that we've actually cleaned the gun. So, it's one of those things. If your barrel is coppering up, if you're seeing that copper coming out, your crown, then you may have a problem to where you do need to remove it. But if you're buying good, high-quality barrels that don't copper up very much, you're going to see that you really don't have to remove that copper every time. Just use good Impro 7 to remove the carbon.
Okay, so your cleaning procedure is going to vary depending, obviously, what kind of barrel you have, and maybe ammo that you're shooting, stuff like that. Now, what happens when you take out that bearing surface, when you do actually strip the copper? Like if you were to take that gun that you cleaned or that you shot 8,000 rounds through and you took that bearing surface out, what would happen?
Well, it turned it into a 2.5-minute gun. So
just like that?
Just like that. Went straight back out, shot it the next day. That was the end of the test. When we finished those 8,000 rounds, and the gun started with 5,500 rounds on it, and I was stripping all the copper out each time I shot it. But when we started the test around 8,000 rounds, we left all that copper in there and just removed the carbon. But the next morning when we got up and actually shot the gun, it was a 2.5-minute gun. So, and it took about 43 rounds later for that gun to settle in and start shooting, good half-minute groups again. So,
and that's a good point, because if you do strip your copper out, people need to understand they're going to have to build that bearing surface back up by going out and dirtying their gun to where you get your accuracy back that you had previous.
Absolutely. We call them clean cold bore shifts, and your bullet will hit somewhere else, not all the time. Some barrels don't have that much of a shift, but it's kind of standard for a bullet to hit somewhere else on the clean cold bore. All right. Okay. So that's something that you have to actually lay down at 100 meters or 100 yards and shoot that clean cold bore and note where that impact is. So if you do decide you're one of those guys that you're still going to remove the carbon and copper out each time, you need to know where that cold bore shot's going to be. So you have to go in and track it and put it in your data book, and then, hey, I'm an inch high and a half inch right, on this first shot. Second shot's half of that. Then we fall back into my normal group.
Yeah, it's good information. And when I clean my rifle, I always go out and dirty. I'll go out and shoot it right afterwards, especially if I'm going to be shooting it pretty soon after that cleaning process. So leading into like a storage process, say you're not going to shoot that gun, or you got a bunch of guns on your wall and you don't get back around to that for a few months or something, is there a procedure of storing it? Like I see a lot of guys take a really wet lubed patch and they'll run it through there and leave it wet and they'll put it on the wall. Is that okay to do? But you don't want to shoot it like that, though, obviously.
No, obviously you wouldn't. You'd want to run a dry patch out several times and clean that out there. But, if I was actually going to store a gun for a while, I would do the same thing. I'd make sure the gun was really clean, good, removed all the carbon, everything that I could get. I probably wouldn't do a kind of a field clean, what we're doing here today, just dripping out some of the carbon and actually going out and continue shooting. But if I'm going to actually store a gun, I'm going to make sure all that carbon's out of there. And then I'm going to go ahead and oil that barrel. All right. So if there's any humidity in my gun safe or anything, you're not going to actually end up rusting your barrel. So put a little oil in it, put it in a dry, on a dry patch, oil that patch up, run it through. Do that a couple of times, store the gun, you'll be fine. Just make sure you clean that oil out before you shoot it again.
Absolutely, because you're actually putting another surface, a bearing surface inside that. That's because liquid's the most solid medium under pressure, so that's going to sometimes expand barrel if you got a whole lot of oil in your gun. And what people also need to understand is the copper is not what hurts your barrel, it's the carbon.
Absolutely, that's what's going to pitch your barrel.
Okay, that's good knowledge, good knowledge. Well, thanks, Todd.
All right, you bet. You know, a lot of times I get, well, that's unethical to take a shot on a deer, you know, past 500. Well, if you believe that, you probably don't need to do it. You know, it probably is unethical for you to do it. But, you know, my son shot his first group when he was 14 at a mile on paper, just like this, and shot a 15-inch group at a mile. He understands the fundamentals of shooting. You know, he had somebody call and win for him. Last year, we went out, shot a deer, a mule deer, at 1,020 meters. He hit it twice. He hit it once, it lunged forward, turned around, he racked the bolt, dumped it again. All right, hit it 2 times at 1,020. He's very capable. The weapon system was capable, shooting good ammo, good wind calls. We knew we could make the shot. I'd never take a shot at an animal, you know, just in hopes to hit it. You know, we're not going to do that, you know. But if it is something I feel very confident of and I can prove it on steel day after day, and you have to take the time. You have to take the time to go out and actually lay down, spend time. It's just like we talk about, you know, you pay your dues. You know, you don't get to where you're at in life to where you can take a shot at long range or run speed drills, you know, like y'all do in your normal line of work. Doing what y'all do, you just didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I think I'll run a carbine class. You know, you spent hours and hours and hours. When I was running pistol stuff, when I was shooting competition with pistols back when I was doing cowboy action, first year I'd shoot 3 hours a night dry firing, all right? It's not that you wake up one morning and all of a sudden you're good enough to win. You've spent hours and hours of that prep time. You've paid your dues to get there. After 13 months of doing that, you know, finally it paid off, all right? So it's like everything in life. I don't care if you're jumping, skydiving, if you're playing golf, playing pool, doesn't matter, you're gonna pay your dues. Some people are naturally inclined, but they're still paying their dues. You know, they didn't just wake up one morning. So it's the same thing. If you wanna take long range shots, you gotta get out there, you gotta understand the fundamentals, you gotta pay your dues. You know, buy books like Brian Litz's Applied Ballistics book, very good book. You know, sit down and read that, get better understanding. Like this DVD, all we're trying to do is educate the public, give them a no-nonsense, common sense approach to it, to where people can actually kind of run in and gather that knowledge, you know, and feel confident on their own that they can do it.
That goes back to that word that you said earlier that we used on a daily basis, of consistency. You've got to come out here and be consistent at this, and I think that's what we're all trying to do here is raise that bar, because the shooting community is, I believe, from looking at the precision community, so many controversies out there. It's like that in every community, really, but there's a standard that people are scared to step above. Like you said with hunters, it's unethical to go out past 300 yards to shoot an animal. Well, no, it's not. It's not at all when you understand this. Yeah. And that's all it is. So we're trying to raise that bar up because everything excels. I mean, we didn't put rockets in space 200 years ago, but we do now because we excel. And that's what we're doing here.
Well, and the big deal is, like we always talk about, we're trying to get out of our comfort zones. Comfort zones are a bad deal. Most people in life excel to a certain point, and then they get comfortable and they shut down the brakes. They feel, you know, hey, I don't have to do any better. My wife is happy, my boss is happy. I don't want to fail. To me, the only time that you fail is when you don't try. When you don't try to excel, you're failing. I don't care if you're doing pretty good here. Why not reach out? You know, why not reach out and see what you can do? You know, it's like y'all jumped up. You're excelling in what you're doing right now, just like Mike. He's excelling in what he's doing. Same thing with anybody that's reaching that top level. You have to push your boundaries every day. You can't wake up in the morning and go, you know, we've got a pretty good school. Let's just teach this for the next 2 years. That school is what dies off. You know, in about a year, nobody's booking that school anymore. Every morning you wake up and you go, man, what can I do different? How can I make it easier for the guys? That's why we come up with all the different wind formulas and high angle formulas and all the different military formulas that I teach the guys. I'm trying to make it easier for them, but I'm trying to always change my school every week. It's something different. Next time when they come back, maybe 3 months later, maybe a year later, all right, when they come in, they're going like, wow, man, another formula? And you're rubbing their heads, you know. But really, we're just trying to excel and make it better, make it easier for them. But we've got to do that. Everybody in their own life has to do that. So you have to always be willing to step outside your box, reach out and do something that makes you excel, makes you maybe fail, but you're not failing. You're just figuring out what you can't do so that you can figure out a plan how to attack it and actually beat it.
Well, failure is good. That's what our
Absolutely.
biggest thing is that if you don't know how to fail, you don't know how to succeed, and that's why we have a ladder of excellence theory. Every rung on our ladder is a failure point, and if you're afraid to grab that failure point, then you're not going to climb anywhere.
Yeah, that's what experience is. You know, experience is, hey, I learned something because I failed somewhere. I didn't succeed. You know, that's what I tell my kids. It's when you don't succeed, that's not failure. You know, failure is when you didn't try.
We're here in Texas, the Panhandle, I'm told, with Todd Hognett and Accuracy First. We are very excited and delighted to be shooting in such a place.
What in the hell is that called? Laughing.
Panhandle of Florida. No, cut.
So if you look at it, you know, or if you really got to cut as much as.
All right, here we go, guys. Making an Arnold Palmer this time.
Fucking, that's what I'm talking about. Peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly.
This is Mike's first time firing a 50, but he's not as scared as Costa.
No, you get him. I don't like spice. This is Karate Chop. This is what you do. I'm going to demonstrate on Mike's face what we're going to do.
Costa's definitely afraid of this machine.
I see something messed up on my scope.
Everybody should get a Steve.
You switched to ocular lens on me. You completely took my scope off.
Put it on that.
Dude, check it out. Dude, look at the personality on this thing.
He's fighting.
Run, John, run!
Because he's sticking to something out there. Like,
All right, here we go. New take. Big one.
I wish I had a milkshake right now, just to be doing this while we're filming Hay, so I could enjoy it.
Strawberry ones from Wendy's.
I feel like I'm playing Twister, but it's the most comfortable Twister I've ever played.
Is that gold? Is that uber plutonium? That's got that big fuzzy thing out of his pants again.
What the fuck is that? I know where you're looking because you always notice.
And why is your pick rail on the side?
You built a rifle for us?
Listen to me, Todd. Listen, this is very serious. I'm going to do something with my hands. I'm thinking. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, why am I talking like this? Like I'm in a Chinese arigato movie. I will attempt to hit Mike with my fist.
Stop laughing, Todd.
Okay, I just hit myself in the nuts.
I look fat.
Well, it's hard to say because I haven't seen you actually on the TV yet.
When you get your Accuracy First whiz wheel, first thing that you want to do is set up your density altitude. If you look at these numbers here in the middle window, you're going to see this is for every 1,000 foot for elevation. All right, the numbers underneath in tan, this is for your actual temperature. So you line up 2,700 foot, which we are at here today, at 60 degrees, and you're going to see your density altitude underneath this top window here where the line is at 3,500 foot. If you look, these top two windows up here at the top left, this goes from negative 10,000 foot density altitude to 5,000 foot density altitude. The window on the right actually still for long range, but for density altitude from 5,000 to 20,000. This window on the left, this is for medium range for all density altitudes, as well as the little window which is just short range for all density altitudes. So now what you're going to do is we're going to true the gun. So you take the 800, plug it in at the 3,500 foot density altitude. You're going to see for the normal velocity, which this wheel's set up for 2550 muzzle velocity, you're going to see your hold is 8.7 mils. Well, if you actually don't hit at 8.7, let's say you hit at 8.5, you can look and see that 8.5 is halfway in between those two lines, the plus 50 and the normal 50. So we know our muzzle velocity is 2575. But if there's another way to actually true this, you can actually turn to where your bullet hit in underneath the line in the window to 8.5. Now, you'd actually utilize the number that is closest to that center line wherever that you hit. And then you're just going to look underneath that line. There's 3 lines right there. So now our next shot being at 700 meters, we're going to go ahead and turn that to 2300 for our density altitude. And we're going to see that our actual hold now that is a true hold is 6.7 mils. All right, you could actually turn it back to the 3500 and you could actually see that 6.55 and 6.87, all right, halfway in between those is still that 6.7 mils. So you can true it either way and it works very accurately. All right, you can also then go down to 500 meters, all right, in the medium range, plug it in at the 2200 and you're going to see that your hold underneath this bottom column is 3.8 mils or 3.75. Or you could actually go back and true it, or the first way that we did, and you can look and see that you're not shooting a 3.7 or a 3.9. You're going to shoot halfway in between those, which is the same hold. All right, so you can true it either way, but that's the main focus. Is any ballistic solver has to be trued for it to give you an actual hold. They're all predictive algorithms until you actually true it and find the actual algorithm that the bullet's flying on. Now on the back side, you're going to see that where the yellow is, yellow and tan on the bottom, that's for high angle shooting. All right, now if we take a flat hold of 7 mils and look underneath it down to where the 30 degrees is on the left, you're going to see that your hold would be 5.8. Now that's a corrected hold for high angle, and it's that simple. These are actual real holes, mathematical holes that are corrected for high angle shots. And you can see that on the left it goes from 5 degrees to 60 degrees, and your mil holes from 1 all the way to 20. So it's very quick and very easy to utilize. Now density altitude also affects wind as much as it affects elevation. So we were at 700 meters at 3,500 foot density altitude. So when we align those two numbers at the top left, we now see that in a full value wind, we would actually hold 1.9 mils. All right, but if your actual clock position of the wind was 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, you can see here we would actually be holding about a 1.7, 1.6 hold for wind. Now this is already corrected for your cosine of your wind. All right, for winds coming from 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, you can see that your wind hold would be about 0.9 mils. Again, this is a corrected cosine for the wind value that you have coming in from 1 o'clock. It's already done the cosine for you, and now it gives you a corrected hold. And this is all density altitude corrected. All right, underneath here you can see this is movers from 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 miles an hour. So all these holes here are very quick meal holes for leads for moving targets. As you can see, it only takes just a couple of minutes to learn how to accurately use the WizWheel. Now, when you're actually playing with the WizWheel, you're going to find that the actual trued algorithm gives you just as accurate holes as any ballistic solver can actually give you. So this is a very simple system to use. It's very quick to learn. It doesn't require batteries, and it's really fast and accurate.